At 4 a.m. local time on Thanksgiving morning, deep in the frozen outskirts of Moscow, a Russian commander is settling in for a quiet shift inside his fortified bunker. He has absolutely no idea that Ukrainian eyes have been locked on his specific coordinates for the past 6 hours. In exactly 94 seconds, his $500 million facility is going to become the world's most expensive underground oven, courtesy of 3 drones. While Donald Trump is down at Mar-a-Lago raising a glass of champagne for Thanksgiving, Berlin just quietly delivered a different kind of answer. Over 500 long-range Liutyi attack drones, part of a massive €100 million Black Friday package. The message from Germany is crystal clear. American peace is on paper, but German peace has a wild and 200-mile range and arrives with surgical precision. The target today is the neurological center of Russia's northern front, a secret subterranean electronic warfare command post designed to blind thousands of Ukrainian drones. On an FPV screen in a bunker in Kyiv, a pilot takes a sip of coffee and smiles. Let's ruin Putin's weekend. 43 seconds to impact. You think Putin is sleeping soundly, dreaming of that American peace deal? Let me know in the comments what color pajamas you think he is wearing when the air raid sirens start screaming. Because on a tactical map that looks like a Christmas tree, 3 blue dots are about to demonstrate a brutal economic reality. Russia spent $500 million digging this bunker. Ukraine is using 3 drones worth a combined $600,000 from a free German shipment. Who says cheap tech can't kill luxury defenses? 1,800 hours, 10 hours before impact. This operation kicks off in a nondescript field outside Kharkiv with a strategy that Silicon Valley venture capitalists would call burn rate optimization. 3 premium German-supplied Liutyi drones lift off, but they aren't alone. They are escorted by a strange entourage of 50 Bulava decoys. These decoys are essentially flying sheets of plywood powered by lawnmower engines, costing about $500 a pop, but on a radar screen, they look exactly like cruise missiles. As the swarm crosses into Russian airspace near Bryansk, the S-400 batteries take the bait exactly as predicted. The Russians panic and launch 20 40N6 interceptors. Let's do the brutal math on that engagement. Each 40N6 missile costs $2 million. That means Moscow just incinerated $40 million of taxpayer money to shoot down $25,000 worth of plywood and plastic. That is a negative return on investment of 160,000%. In the corporate world, that kind of loss gets a CEO fired before lunch. In the Russian military, it apparently just gets you a medal. While the sky above explodes in expensive fireballs, the 3 real killers stay low. I mean dangerously low. We are talking under 100 feet, hugging the terrain like sharks in shallow water. Navigating the Moskva River Valley isn't a joyride though. The wind gusts here hit 15 miles per hour, slamming into the airframes with enough force to push a standard drone into a fatal drift. But these Liutyi units aren't running on standard firmware. They are equipped with German-engineered AI that learned to fly by studying NATO satellite data. The system feels the wind shear, calculates the drift, and adjusts the flight path in milliseconds, treating the turbulence like a minor inconvenience rather than a mission-ending threat. They are invisible, silent, and closing in. 03:55 a.m., 50 miles outside Moscow city limits. The game changes. One of the sacrificial Bulava decoys breaks formation and dives straight for the suburbs. Instantly, a Pantsir S-1 system stationed on the roof of a Ministry of Defense building roars to life. This thing is a beast, designed to dominate the open deserts of Syria, armed with twin 30mm cannons capable of spewing 5,000 rounds per minute and a rack of hypersonic 57E6 missiles. The radar operator looks at his scope and sees his worst nightmare. 300 targets appear simultaneously. The Pantsir's target acquisition system is powerful, sure, but right now it is like trying to run Cyberpunk 2077 on ultra settings using a Windows 7 office computer from 2010. The processor spikes to 100%, the cooling fans scream, the logic boards overheat trying to distinguish between a lethal threat and a flying piece of plywood. The system panics. The cannons unleash a storm of tungsten, and missiles tear off the rails, shredding 3 decoys in midair. The shockwave rattles the windows of 1,000 luxury apartments below. However, this display of firepower is useless. Using the chaos as a smokescreen, the 3 real Liutyi drones slip into the urban canyons. They weave between high-rise apartment blocks with terrifying agility. Their obstacle avoidance logic isn't running on standard military protocols anymore. It operates like Tesla autopilot engaged in Mad Max mode, calculating collision risks and flight paths with zero latency, treating skyscrapers not as walls but as shields. Let's talk specs for a second, because on paper, the Russians should be winning this hands down. The S-400's massive 92N6E radar can supposedly scan a 250-mile radius and track 300 targets simultaneously. It is designed to spot a baseball at 60 miles. But war doesn't happen in a sterile lab environment or a glossy sales brochure. It happens in the dirty, noisy reality of physics. In the dense urban clutter of Moscow, that billion-dollar radar is effectively blind to anything flying below the roofline. It is like trying to spot a mouse running across the floor while looking through a telescope taped to your face. The Liutyi drones are exploiting the urban canyon effect, hugging the 600-foot skyline, utilizing the curvature of the earth and the concrete buildings themselves as physical masks. While the Pantsir batteries are spinning their turrets trying to engage the 50 cheap decoys, the lead Liutyi activates its German-supplied ace in the hole. A focused jamming pod blasting noise across the 8 to 12 GHz band. It is a surgical strike on the radar's optic nerve. To the Russian operators, their screens don't just go black. They fill with a blizzard of white noise. It is the ultimate game of electronic whack-a-mole. Except in this version, the moles have hacked the game console, they know exactly where the hammer is going to fall, and they have brought a sledgehammer of their own. This is how 3 drones, costing less than a used supercar, are dismantling an integrated air defense network that Western analysts feared for decades. It turns out the world's strongest air defense is really just a glass cannon, terrifying until you get close enough to tap it with a hammer. At 03:58 a.m., 50 miles from the target, the Russian commanders decide they have had enough of this game and finally flip the table. A massive Krasuka 4 electronic warfare complex parked near the Kremlin walls surges to full power, unleashing an electromagnetic tsunami across the city. This isn't a surgical jamming signal. It is a brute force denial of reality that blasts white noise across every GPS, GLONASS, and Galileo frequency band. On the digital map, Moscow instantly vanishes into a gray void. For 99% of the military drones on Earth, this is a death sentence. Without satellite guidance, they are nothing more than blind birds waiting to crash into the nearest high-rise. The Russian commander watches his screens clear up, confident that his electronic Iron Dome has done its job, expecting the Ukrainian machines to drift harmlessly into the countryside or veer off toward the Pacific Ocean. He has no idea who manufactured the chips inside these machines. This is where the ace in the hole hidden in that German shipping manifest reveals itself. These Liutyi drones don't care about satellites because they aren't looking at the sky. They are looking at the ground. They switch instantly to DSMAC, Digital Scene Matching Area Correlator. Think of it this way. Jamming GPS is like putting a blindfold on a driver. It works, unless that driver has memorized every single pothole, street sign, and tree on the road home. The optical sensor on the lead drone's belly begins snapping 50 frames per second, cross-referencing the terrain below with a 3D internal library stored on an encrypted solid-state drive. It isn't using radio waves, it uses computer vision. It runs a real-time rendering engine with the raw processing power of 10 NVIDIA RTX 4090s strapped together, building a map of the world as it flies. You can jam a frequency, you can spoof a satellite, but you cannot jam the ground itself. Back in the air, the drone's onboard AI enters a critical survival loop. The sensors detect a violent thermal updraft rising from the Moskva River, and the inertial measurement unit screams a warning. The wind shear has pushed the airframe 3.6 degrees off axis. At 100 miles per hour, a 3.6 degree deviation doesn't mean you miss the bullseye. It means you miss the entire bunker and hit the parking lot. The AI realizes it has exactly 0.8 seconds to correct before the trajectory becomes unrecoverable. It doesn't wait for a human pilot in Kiev to wiggle a joystick, as that signal would take too long. Instead, the drone snaps its ailerons hard right, groaning under 4 Gs of lateral force, burning precious kinetic energy to claw back onto the flight path with robotic perfection. Just as the lead drone stabilizes, the final boss appears. A reserve Pantsir S-1 unit previously hidden under camouflage netting in a park just 1 mile from the target spins its turret. Its radar burns through the clutter, spotting the drones at point-blank range. There is no time to dodge, and the engagement envelope is fatal. This is where the combined arms theory gets dirty. On a rooftop of a civilian apartment block half a mile away, a 4-man Ukrainian HUR special ops team, who infiltrated the city a week ago, hits a button. 3 short-range commercial drones rigged with aluminum foil to maximize their radar signature pop up from behind a billboard. It is a cheap magician's trick, but the Pantsir's automated logic falls for it hook, line, and sinker. The turret slews violently to the left, distracted by the sudden, closer threats, and its cannons roar, lighting up the night sky. That 5-second distraction is all the Liutyi needs. The lead drone dives, dropping from 100 feet to 40 feet, screaming across the manicured lawn of the secret facility. It banks around the Ostankino TV tower like a tourist before lining up perfectly with the reinforced concrete ventilation shaft of the bunker. The Russian radar operator catches the movement in his peripheral vision, but his voice cracks over the radio as he realizes the truth. Target is under the radar horizon. Repeat, they are under the screen goes white. 5 seconds. The Pantsir gunner screams, realizing he has been chasing ghosts. He slams the manual override, forcing the turret to traverse back 180 degrees. The hydraulics whine in protest, fighting the massive inertia of the guns as he punches the launch button one last time. The missile leaves the rail, accelerating to Mach 3 instantly, but physics is a cruel mistress. The turret hadn't finished its turn. The interceptor screams past the lead drone, missing the tail section by 500 feet and detonating harmlessly against a billboard advertising a new luxury condo. In the underground bunker in Kiev, the pilot's grip tightens on the controller. There is no more AI, no more German autopilot. It is just his thumb and the target. He whispers a quiet dedication into his headset. Für Deutschland. And for a real peace. 2 seconds. The drone's camera feed fills with the rough concrete texture of the bunker's main air intake. The Russians inside the command post hear a sound that shouldn't exist, the high-pitched whine of a propeller spinning at 7,000 RPM echoing down the ventilation shaft like a banshee. 1 second. The radar operator looks up from his blank screen. He doesn't see a diplomatic solution. He sees the future barreling towards him at 100 miles per hour. 0. The camera feed cuts to static. This isn't just an explosion, it is a lesson in brutal thermodynamics. The 110-pound shaped charge strikes the reinforced concrete cap with enough kinetic energy to punch through a bank vault. Upon contact, the copper liner inside the warhead inverts, transforming into a hypersonic jet of molten plasma moving at Mach 25. It doesn't break the concrete, it liquefies it. That thermal drill injects itself straight down the ventilation shaft, bypassing 10 feet of steel and soil to detonate directly inside the central command room. The pressure wave has nowhere to go. It rebounds off the reinforced walls, instantly turning the air pressure inside the bunker to 50 times that of the atmosphere. The servers, the delicate jamming consoles, and the command staff aren't just destroyed. They are atomized by a shockwave that treats the human body like a water balloon in a hydraulic press. But the destruction is just getting started. The 2 escort drones following 2 seconds behind don't just watch the show, they finish it. They dive into the breach, slamming into the facility's lithium-ion battery backup arrays. The resulting thermal runaway creates a subterranean firestorm burning at 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, melting the structural steel supports and collapsing the entire $500 million facility into a smoking crater. By sunrise, a 2,000-foot column of black smoke is rising over the Moscow skyline, visible from Red Square. Intelligence reports confirm that 80% of Russia's electronic jamming capability for the northern front just evaporated. The ripple effects are immediate and catastrophic. Gas prices in the capital spike 30% in a single morning as panic buying sets in. The nearby rail lines are paralyzed because the digital signaling systems were routed through that very bunker. Let's look at the balance sheet because the economics here are more terrifying than the explosion. Ukraine spent $600,000 in donated German hardware. Russia lost $500 million in infrastructure and, more importantly, complete control of the electromagnetic spectrum for at least 6 months. There isn't a hedge fund on Wall Street or a venture capital firm in Silicon Valley that can deliver a return on investment like that. This morning, the geopolitical landscape looks very different. Vladimir Putin has lost his electronic shield right in the middle of peace negotiations. The phone call between Donald Trump and President Zelensky tomorrow is going to be interesting. The American president might complain that his peace deal was disrupted, but Zelensky can simply reply that he didn't break the deal. He just leveled the playing field using a Black Friday shipment from Berlin. 3 drones, 1 morning. And the realization that in modern warfare, a $200,000 piece of flying plastic can bankrupt a superpower's strategy. There are still 497 of these drones sitting in a warehouse in Ukraine, waiting for the next holiday. Putin's weekend is ruined, but his nightmare is just beginning.